Hey baby cakes, this is another segment of the Q&A and I'm going to dive right in because I've still got tons and tons of questions to do. I don't know how many I'm going to get through, but hopefully you will find this interesting. Hopefully you'll learn something about me if that's your intention, or you can just enjoy my crazy occult zombie top. What advice would you give to a new tarot business owner about developing a branding on a budget? This is a really awesome question to open up this segment of the Q&A because it's something that I've thought about a lot on my own journey. I have noted whilst I've been doing my business mentoring or just engaging with people online who want to go into tarot reading as a business, that they've asked me what kinds of courses I took to understand more about branding, or who designed my website for me, or how often I pay to get professional photographs done. And I did not pay anyone and didn't do any course, nor have I ever paid to get professional photographs done, and nobody designed my website for me. And no, I do not code. So there's a lot of assumptions that I am running a much bigger ship than I kind of am, if you know what I mean. Like, a lot of people are assuming that I've had help to develop my branding, or that somebody is doing my photos for me, or that somebody's designing and upkeeping my website. And a lot of people have said to me that they feel like the look that I've given my website is quite slick and it looks quite kind of hi-fi, but it is all completely fucking lo-fi as shit, you know? I did it all on a shoestring. I had no money to play with when I opened my business. And I've tried to keep costs down as much as I can as things have gone along. There's definitely software that I've paid for now, and I've definitely paid for, a scheduling program that my clients use, and a shop front and that kind of thing. But in terms of branding and getting the aesthetic how I want it, and communicating non-verbally with my audience about what kinds of things I provide and who I am, the budget is still really what it was before. You know, I make all of my kind of memes and graphics myself using free backgrounds and a nice font that I like the look of. And I just try and keep everything minimalistic and slick. Basically, what I'm trying to communicate to you, I think, is that it's really important that you avoid telling yourself that you actually require a lot of money to create effective branding, and branding that really speaks about who you are, because you don't require a lot of money at all. And that is really the myth that you need to bust in your own mind so that you can move forward and like take branding by the balls and really go with it. One thing I would definitely recommend if you're on a budget and you want to create effective branding that really kind of aligns with who you are, is to sit down obviously and think about what you want your business to represent, what you are going to be doing in your business, what kind of role you're going to be playing, and potentially also the kinds of customers that you want to interact with, the kind of audience you want to attract, and that kind of stuff. That can all obviously have a huge positive effect on how you end up branding your business. It really can clarify a lot of things for you. It can give you a sense of what kinds of characteristics you have and what skills you have that you want to convey in your branding. You can't convey every single part of your personality, every single strength that you have, every single facet of your business in your branding. You need to choose something, however, that really does align strongly with your mission and with your core kind of the core energies that you're bringing to your business. Think of branding as fun. Don't think of it as this really sterile kind of businessy thing that you've got to think about. Think of it as art. Think of it as expression. Think of it as an opportunity to stand on your very own stage and do something really creative that really means something to you. You need a very small amount of technical know-how to set up a website, to create great images, and to put text on those images. So don't intimidate yourself by telling yourself that you need to know Photoshop and you need to know web design and coding. You don't need to know those things. There are really simple free platforms that you can use, and you can still make them look marvelous. You can do your own photos and learn very simply how to add text to them and that kind of stuff. So don't be intimidated. Don't tell yourself that you need loads of know-how, because you really don't. In case anybody is listening to this right now and thinking that they would like to know more about how I approach branding, or how I would suggest that you can make branding into a profound experience and make sure that it reflects you, I'm going to link below to a purchase option that I offer. It's called Sweet Alchemy, and it basically comprises of 4 videos that are all about different aspects of the business journey in this particular industry. And one of them is about soulful branding, and it really encapsulates how I approach branding. So that might really interest you as well if you want to know more about my thoughts on branding and my thoughts about other things in the business arena. Do you believe in angels and fairies? This question came up earlier, I think, when I was asked whether I believe in fairies and ghosts and spirits. And you know, there's no real hard and fast answer to this, yes or no, one way or the other. I think that a lot of these words that we use, like angels, spirit guides, fairies, the fae, elementals, that kind of stuff, I think that they are all kind of different paradigms or different interpretations of what is ultimately the same thing. And that is a human experience that a lot of us have had, but we take it and we filter it through our own paradigms or through our own perspective or what really speaks to us, and it comes out as different things, you know, with different names and different associations. But ultimately I think we're all tapping into the same idea of disembodied intelligences, and the idea that there are intelligences that we can commune with and that we can learn from, and that we can also teach in some cases, that don't have a physical form, and that have their own kind of hierarchy or their own beingness, their own type, if you will. What do you believe happens when we die? From my personal perspective, the simplest way that I can boil it down without getting into a big long thing is that I believe that we go back. I believe that we go back to where we came from. I believe we go back to source in some form. I believe that we're animated with something, and we will cease to be animated by that thing when this physical vessel dies. But I believe that that thing that animates us never dies. And speaking from the perspective of somebody who personally has had a lot of experiences with meditation, with entheogenic substances, and with astral journeying and that kind of thing, I can say that I do feel that the little shard of this life force, this chi, this chaos, if you will, that animates me right now, could potentially take with it a small blueprint of my ego self as I am right now. So it could be the case that the piece of life force that used to animate Kellyanne Maddox 3 billion years ago on Earth could be racing through infinity, could be somehow moving through the cosmos, and it could move past the piece of life force that used to animate my boyfriend 3 billion years ago on Earth. And those two pieces of life force could collide for a moment and kind of like pass each other like two ships in the night, and there'll be a sense of recognition there. So in a way, I guess what I'm saying is that nothing ever dies, but I do believe that I am a one-time thing. I, as I am on planet, in this physical vessel with this name, I'm a one-time thing, but the life force that is running through me right now, that is forever. I would like to know your opinions on Christians who incorporate magic into their spiritual practice. Is it possible, or is it like Phil Hines suggests, that two things can be true, just not at the same time? Because I've never been a Christo witch or a Christo witch, however you want to say it, I personally cannot say whether or not one has to put their witchdom in a box in order to really connect with the Christian side of things, and vice versa, or whether or not those two things can comfortably exist at the same time. You know, I can't say whether or not somebody needs to kind of cut off a little bit or distance themselves a little bit from the witch inside of them in order to worship Christ or go to church or read the Bible. So I can't really say whether those two things can ultimately exist at the same time. In terms of people who do consider themselves to follow Christ or be Christian and also believe that they practice witchcraft in some form, I don't take issue with that as a witch. I know that there are a lot of witches that do take issue with that, and I tend to feel that they are usually American witches who have dealt with living under the tyranny of the Christian dogma themselves. They've either been raised in a household where it was really kind of like jammed down their throats, and because of that they've had a lot of issues, and they've really had to go on a momentous journey towards accepting their own witchdom and really coming to terms with it and alleviating themselves from the umbrella of the Christian dogma. And for that reason, I'm not necessarily going to judge witches who feel some type of way about other witches who profess themselves to be Christian and also witches. I can understand why that can kind of create tension, but I personally feel like it's not an issue for me personally. It's not something that I'm offended by. It's not even something that I'm weirded out by. I really do think of Jesus as a witch. I think of Jesus as an ascended master. I think of Jesus as a lot of things, but I definitely do think of Jesus as a witch, you know. For me, I think it would be really, 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 really difficult to be a Christian and also be a witch. For me personally, I would feel like that is a case of two things maybe being true about me, but never being able to inhabit the same space. I could never be a Christian at my altar, and I could never be a witch whilst I was worshipping Christ in church. Now, to be a Christo witch, I think that would work. And by that, I mean, rather than being a Christian and a witch, I think it would be easier for me to work with Christ and be a witch. So you're taking something that's central to that paradigm and you're keeping that thing, but you're going over to more of the witchcraft side of things. I think a lot of people that have been raised Christian who recognise that they are witches and they want to work in that paradigm as witches will take things with them, like the Bible, or, you know, Mary if they were raised Catholic, or Jesus, or angels. There are lots of witches that still work with angels because of that, the kind of leftovers, if you like, from their Christian upbringing in many cases. And I think that to me makes a lot more sense, to take things from that paradigm but essentially leave the dogma of that paradigm, or leave the complete structure of that paradigm. That would work for me. I don't think I could be, you know, like a holy rolling Christian and also someone that practices the craft on a daily basis. For me, those two things would not fit together. There'd have to be some form of cognitive dissonance there between the two, if I even could do that. But I think everybody's experience is different, and that's the beauty of it. That's the variety and the spice of it, right? That's what makes it so damn interesting. Do you have a favourite deck, and why is it your favourite? No, I don't really have a favourite, but I definitely feel like if everything I owned was gone tomorrow and somebody came to me and said, you can choose one deck that you can take with you from this apartment, everything else is going to burn to a cinder, I would take the Right Away. You know, it's just kind of, it's my foundation deck. It's the deck that I first properly, really profoundly learned with. I owned two decks before that, the Marseille and the Mythic Tarot, but the Right Away is the first deck that I really kind of used to go really deep and to truly memorise the meanings and to truly expand on the meanings. So it is my foundation deck, and that's why it would be the one that I would take with me. It's basically the only one that I need, for want of a better expression, you know. It's the only one that I really require. All the rest is painted bread, as Frida Kahlo once said. Are there certain qualities that you consider to be must-haves for a deck? Why do you think that they are important characteristics? Oh, this is really interesting. Yeah. Okay, let me think. For me, personally, at the stage I am now in my tarot learning, I would say that when purchasing decks, I feel that they must have art that I connect to immediately, that I really feel is sumptuous. That's just got to happen. I couldn't work with any deck that I considered to have art that was ugly to me or that I didn't connect with. So I guess that's kind of an obvious one. And at this point on my deck buying journey, if there are human figures in the deck, then I need some form of diversity, and I need as much diversity as I can get my hands on. I just feel like that's becoming increasingly important for me, and it's not as though I don't work with decks anymore that only contain, you know, like standard beautiful Caucasian people of a certain weight and height, and like, you know, I'll still work with those decks. It's fine. I own those decks, and there's a reason I own them. There's a reason they're in my collection. But from now on, when I'm buying conscientiously. I'm buying with that in mind. I want to see diversity. I want to see different kinds of human beings if there are human figures. So that's really important to me. And that's important to me because I don't want to go through life kind of not ever looking around and thinking to myself, why doesn't the art that I celebrate reflect the world that I live in? Is it because I have a problem with diversity in the world that I live in? Because if I don't, why wouldn't I want to see that reflected in the art that I appreciate and the tools that I use? What made you go vegan, and how has the decision changed your life? Oh, this is a question from one witchy vegan to another. Thank you so much for this question. The reason that I chose to go vegan is really because I've been a vegetarian since I was 14 years old, and from the age of about 17 or 18, when I first started to really get the hang of what veganism is and why and all the rest of it and what it entails, I've always pretty much been of the belief that that vegetarianism is a train station on the way to veganism. If you are ethically vegetarian, if you are vegetarian for moral, spiritual or ethical reasons, then that vegetarianism can only ever be a train station on the way to, you know, the intended destination where the train terminates, which is full-blown veganism. So to me, that's just always been something that's obvious and something that's made sense. So I first became vegan in my early 20s, and I was vegan for 2 years, and then just as I was heading towards my mid-20s, I went back to vegetarianism for loads of reasons that I won't go into, but I went back to veganism just over a year ago now, and I have never looked back, and I know this time that this is it now. This is a done deal, signed and sealed. And how has it changed my life? It's one of the most important decisions that I've ever made in my life. It's just, I know that there's a big way now in which I'm not being a fucking hypocrite, where I was being a hypocrite before. You know, I love animals. I adore animals. I just fucking love animals. And I love this planet. And to me, veganism is practicing that. Veganism is doing something about those beliefs. It's actually taking those words and putting them into action. Veganism is really the fucking least that I can do. But it is something that gives me joy every day and gives me life every day. I love it. It makes me so much more curious about flavours. I'm so much more interested in like preparing food, and we're so much more interested in going out of the box with food. I've got my taste buds back. You know, when you're eating cheese and drinking milk, your taste buds are basically the slaves of the casomorphins, and once you actually kick the habit and you get off of cheese and milk and stuff, you really get your taste buds back. God, I can really fucking taste chickpeas now, for real. I can taste the fuck out of some chickpeas. Everything just tastes glorious. I do not believe in industrial farming. I think it is a fucking crime. And I don't want to be a part of it. And when I'm not a part of it, when I'm not actively participating in it, when I'm not putting money into it, and when I'm not filling my body up with it, of course I feel good. Of course I feel incredible, you know, and I do. I feel energized. I feel more beautiful. I feel more in touch with myself. I feel more in touch with my spirituality. My shopping bill is less. I don't know where people get this bullshit about veganism being expensive. Like, I really, honest to God, if it's more expensive to be vegan for you than it is to be a meat eater, then you are doing it wrong. Please look up some resources. Like, you're doing it wrong. And with my veganism, I eat very little meat substitutes, very little like fake cheese. Like, once in a while we'll make a pizza and we'll pop the fake cheese on there and stuff like that, and that's the kind of thing that bumps up the shopping list for a vegan. But if you're just going to go all out, like plant-based vegan, fruits, veggies, pulses, nuts, grains, etc., then you're good to go, you know, you're good to go. Sometimes fruit can get pricey, but your basic grains and shopping around for cheap vegetables, it can really bring the price down from what it is to be a meat eater, certainly, and vegetarian in a lot of cases too, if you're using a lot of substitutes. How do you suggest bonding with your new or first tarot deck? I just found you on YouTube and I'm so incredibly smitten with your videos. Oh, thank you, darling. That is so bloody lovely of you to say. Bonding with your first ever tarot deck. Ooh, this is exciting. Okay, first of all, if you already kind of have a process for bonding with other kinds of things that you purchase for your spiritual practice or that you get hold of for your spiritual practice, then consider doing the exact same thing with your tarot deck. So for example, if you purchase a crystal and then you tend to cleanse it or sage it or consecrate it or do a blessing on it, you know, or cordially welcome it to your collection of spiritual items, then do the exact same thing with your tarot deck. Without a doubt, it works just the same way. You might want to think of designing some kind of a dedication ceremony or writing a dedication ritual or a statement of dedication to your deck, just welcoming it into your life and just basically using words and gestures to express that you are now ready to learn what the deck has to teach you and you are ready to experience such a sense of wonderment and discovery through using the deck. So it kind of makes it official, you know. It's kind of like smashing a champagne bottle on the front of a ship. It just makes it feel official. You can try doing daily draws with your deck, weekly draws with your deck. You can get a tarot journal and start journaling, scrapbooking in it, whatever you want to do, creating art, collecting quotes that seem to connect with different cards in the deck, however you would personally like to do it. Handle your deck often, even when you're not doing a reading for yourself or somebody else, even when you're not learning. Just sitting there and handling it can be really great. It can just create that bond and create that sense of feeling comfortable using the deck and just taking a look through it and looking at the pictures. One great thing to do is to lay out the entire deck on the floor, and just lay it out in order and just look at it and just meditate upon it, engage with it. I still do that now, which is why it's handy to have a couple of mini decks, because they take less time and less room, and you can kind of leave them out on the floor if you want to. You can leave them out for like a couple of days and just continue to keep returning and just looking at them. And that can be really awesome. That can go really deep. Do you have a tarot deck that you consider most prescient? For anyone that isn't aware what prescient means, it's basically having a knowledge of things before they occur, so basically being precognitive in a way. And the answer to the question is no, I don't have a tarot deck that I consider to be most prescient, because I don't think of the decks themselves as having any precognitive ability or any cognition of any kind whatsoever. I have a particular relationship with certain decks that would dictate to me that they might be useful for certain circumstances, and some decks will definitely call to me for certain clients where I'll just get a really strong sense that it is supposed to be that deck. But in terms of a deck being good for predicting the future, I don't believe that I can predict the future. I believe I can give probabilities for outcomes that may occur if a client continues down a certain road or if they make certain changes. But I'm not really looking for prescience in a tarot deck. That's not really a quality that comes to mind for me when I think about what I need from a deck, because I'm not looking to predict the future for a client. I'm actually looking to help the client design the future that they want to have. I'm not looking to tell a client what's going to happen, but actually what I'm looking to do is to create a framework to help them to develop whatever they want to develop. So it's almost like they decide what they would like to be the case, and then we use the cards as a tool to help them to understand what they may need to change in order to get there, or what they may need to put into action to get there. So prescience for me is not really something that I'm necessarily looking for. I'm looking for a deck that fits the themes and the needs of the client, and that's in terms of the artistry and in terms of my particular bond with the deck and what I understand from the deck, and I will choose the deck according to those kinds of variables. How many journals do you think you've completed in your life so far, and when did you start consistently journaling? I've probably completed around 30 journals. I think, yeah, I think I've completed around 30. I have been journaling since I was about 12 years old on a fairly consistent basis. There are a bunch of diaries and journals from before the age of about 16, that I threw away in the end. It was just getting to be a little bit insane. Oh no, you know what? I think I did keep that blue fluffy one from when I was 15 or 16. But there were others that I have since gotten rid of. I've parted ways with. And there's only one regret I've got about that, and it is the first proper hardback lockable journal that I finished from end to end that I was writing in at the age of 14. I really regret throwing that away, because there were a few accounts in there of certain things that I experienced mental health wise, certain symptoms of mania and psychosis that I wrote down. I actually wrote about them, and I have a very specific memory of what I did write, and I actually have a specific memory of the year that these experiences took place. So it's not as if I've lost anything in terms of getting rid of the journal, but I just wish I had the journal so I could reread exactly what I said, because it would help me to an extent to understand some of the foundations for the experiences I've had mental health wise. But other than that, you know, you have to get rid of some at a certain time. And a lot of the early poetry that I was writing when I was like 13 was just so pants. Like I had no desire to keep it. I think it's great that I filled books and books with poems and thoughts and things like that. It must have been great for me at that age to be able to do that and to access that creativity. But there was no need for me to keep them beyond the age of 19 or 20. There's nothing that I could really learn from them. So it's just that one journal that I wish I hadn't thrown away. Has your affinity with hell ever wavered? For instance, have there been times when you couldn't feel her presence? Has she gone quiet for long periods of time? Or have you ever felt as though she wasn't the one for you and another deity was? You and hell always seem so interconnected, and I just wondered if this is a smooth path, or if there are moments where it can become difficult, or moments where the relationship tests you. I have no doubt in my mind that I've had my time periods where hell has gone quiet. but I can't, like, I don't have any specific memories of them as crises in my path or anything like that. I just know that sometimes she really speaks up and she's really a big significant part of my path, and other times she's not so present and she's not so vocal. I think of Hell as a specific shard of the divine feminine archetype that is the most attuned with who I think I am. I think of Hell as a part of my nature and my character, which is always going to be there, which is always going to be a part of me, but it's not always the part of me that's in the driver's seat, and it's not always the part of me that I'm interested in, you know? So I think of Hell as no different. I think of Hell as a presence within my life and within my path that is sometimes going to be of greater significance and sometimes is going to be a little bit of an extra, you know, not so much a main character. And I think that's okay. And I think also Hell does sometimes give way for me to experience other aspects of the divine feminine, and that is very much her intention. Her intention is to do that. So I think that is also a really interesting thing, is that sometimes she will kind of exit stage left so that other divine feminine aspects can come in and do their work and kind of engage with me. I would say it's been a very smooth path with Hell as my matron for the most part, but that is because I've never really worried about the times where she goes quiet. It's never really been a concern for me, and I also don't feel this overwhelmingly intense loyalty towards her, which means that I am conflicted by anything that catches my eye that I want to explore. I think that there are some witches with a very, very distinctly strong connection to their matron, that have that loyalty and that strict sense of spiritual monogamy, if you will, with just that one matron. And I think that's great as far as it goes. But if there are a lot of other things catching your eye, or there are other deities asking for your attention, there can be a lot of guilt there, and there can be a lot of worry that arises as a result of that. I have never experienced that worry. I always knew from the very beginning of getting serious with my path that I was a spiritual magpie, that I was going to allow myself to go to where I was called, and that ultimately I do feel that all of these goddesses and these archetypes, these sirens, these rock stars, they're all different aspects of the overall diamond of the divine feminine, and they are all on offer for me, and they all could have some wisdom to impart to me at one point or another. So I think of Hell really as the touchstone. You know, she's home, she's where I return back to, but I will return back to her after long and winding journeys out there, experiencing the very depths of the pulse of the goddess and running through her veins. But it's almost like there's that one specific location in the body of the divine where I return home to, and where I know that it makes sense for me, and that is Hell. So it's not like I feel like I can't go anywhere else, or I can't be attracted to anything else. She'll always be there. She's a foundation. You know, she's the keystone in the bridge for me, but she's not where I want to stay, you know, all the time. I want to go on adventures and get other things in my swag bag, but I'll always end up, you know, in Helheim. I'll always end up back in her icy embrace. What can I tell you? She is my main lady. I'm wondering what compelled you to go candy coloured after being raven haired for so long. I always said that I did intend to dye my hair again in my 30s, and it just seemed like the right time for a number of reasons that I don't really want to go into. And the reasons weren't really pleasant, but I just felt like I really needed to shake up my image. And yes, I did. I've done so many different things with my hair over the years, and I've been different colours and stuff. I've never had blue hair before, so this has been a really interesting experience for me. So many people think that I dye my hair jet black. They don't kind of realise that my eyebrows and my hair, they are naturally jet black. Like my eyebrows are kind of filled in slightly at the moment because I have kind of a fuller face of makeup on today. But in, I would say, like half the videos that I do, my eyebrows are not filled in. They really are that dark. And if you look at the black coming through at the top here on my head, you know, that like it is black hair. And I think that that will always be such a point of identity for me in terms of aesthetics and in terms of image. I'll always return back to the black hair because I can't like help it. So, you know, I just think it's cool to mix it up, and I really, really enjoy mixing it up. It's really awesome. If I plait my hair blue, when it's blue, then you can really see the plait, you know, whereas when I used to plait my hair when it was black, you couldn't really see the plait itself. So it's really nice to have hair where if you do something to it, then you can actually really see it and it's more visible. So that's really cool. Do you have any favourite television shows or movies currently? I have such a big list of films that I've been meaning to watch that I just have not really given myself the time to watch. I haven't designated the time to it. So I'm just trying to think if there are any movies that I have kind of revisited lately or watched lately that I thought were cool. I recently just checked out The Revenant. I know I'm a little bit late to that party, but it was such an adventure. It was a fucking trip. It was crazy. I definitely want to rewatch that quite soon. But in terms of things that have really been enjoyable for me lately and really interesting, I personally love documentaries. I think documentaries are just fucking awesome. And recently I have rewatched Afropunk, the documentary, and also The Punk Singer, the documentary about Bikini Kill and Kathleen Hanna. That was really awesome. I also recently watched a harrowing but very important and very compelling documentary called The Battle for Whiteclay, which is about the town of Whiteclay on the kind of border of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation and the issues that are going on there with alcoholism and that kind of thing. I'll link below to The Battle for Whiteclay. It's definitely worth a watch if you've got the time and you're even remotely interested in the plight of the Native American people, particularly on the Pine Ridge Reservation. So that was really interesting. I've watched a lot of documentaries lately about Native American reservation life and, the just kind of learning about their culture and their struggles and the development of the reservations over time and that kind of thing, and it's been very eye-opening for me. It's been a really interesting thing to look into. I don't watch television, I don't own a television, I don't have a TV license, I really don't like television. I think for me, if I'm going to watch something, I want to watch it with intention. I don't just want to be swept along, with program after program and adverts and everything like that. I just feel like you can get sucked in way too easily. I would much prefer to check out specific documentaries, specific movies, specific YouTube videos. I like to be in control of what I'm taking in. I like to be in control of the resources that I'm imbibing. And I feel like TV is just too much of a drab roller coaster of ugly mediocrity. And it's just so much shit goes into your head and you can't really control it. You know what I mean? So I'm not really keen on that. I do like watching the occasional series. Some of you will know if you follow me on Facebook or on Twitter that I love Vikings. I cannot fucking wait for the second half of this most recent series to come through for me, baby. I'm ready for Lagertha. I'm so ready. I've never been readier in my life than I am for Lagertha. You know what I mean? Like, what is your favourite item on your altar? Ooh, at the moment, I would say that it would have to be the little vial of holy water that my friend Siobhan brought me back from Rome. It's unbelievable. Look, I'll show it. It's gorgeous. How lush is that? So beautiful. She actually took the holy water in the bottle that it was offered to her in from the church that she was in Rome, and then she actually purchased the bottle with the plaque of Mary on it separately and decanted the holy water into the bottle with Mary on it for me, which I thought was so fucking wonderful. When she told me that, I nearly cried because it's just so thoughtful, and I wasn't expecting anything from her trip to Rome at all, so it's really, really a surprise. And it's just, yeah, it's definitely my favourite thing at the moment, closely followed by my crystal ball, which I'm finally getting to do some client readings with, and it's amazing. That ball is alive, I'm telling you. I'm not even doing anything. That ball is just dancing with kaleidoscopic pictures. It's just nuts. What is one thing that you feel is the most magical in your life? I don't want to play favourites because I really think there's so many magical things in my life and so many things that I get so much inspiration from and that give me so much joy. But at this point in time, I would say that I have a really, really awesome group of friends in my life and a very awesome scene and a very awesome set of healthy and inspiring dialogues going on within a group of people that are resonating with each other on a very, very high frequency. And that to me is so magical. That is a momentous thing and it feels really awesome. So I would definitely say just the friendship group that I inhabit at the moment. I've made so many amazing online connections as well, and I'm so grateful for that. But I think in terms of something that's super magical for me right now, it's got to be that bunch of people and the memories that I'm making with them, and the way that they are actually all meeting and being introduced to each other and like intermingling with each other. And I really did kind of believe that this year was going to be a little bit of a hidey hole kind of hibernation year for me, because I experienced a lot of really difficult things towards the end of last year, and the reverberations of that came through into this year. So I felt that I really wanted to be in myself and in my solitude, and really just give myself over to the quietness of the altar and kind of become a bit nun-like. And I'm not saying that my spirituality has taken a huge backseat or anything like that. Like, I'm still practicing, and it still matters to me, but I've been a lot more sociable over the spring, summer, and now coming into autumn than I thought I was going to be. I've really made some amazing connections with some amazing people, particularly women, and it's just been really awesome. There's a person here asking how I would recommend finding and attuning to the inner child if they were seldom provided space to be a child in the first place. This person goes on to say that they had a childhood that was shaped by a highly anxious mother who loathed when creativity created messes. While there was plenty of childhood activities, I just feel that a large part of my self-expression was either stifled due to my mother hating messes, or me feeling guilty for taking up space when my siblings were already dealing with behavioural and mental health issues that stressed my mother out to the bone. My mother still praises me for being the perfect, self-regulating, wise child who helped her through so much. While I understand where her praise is coming from, I'm becoming so aware of what I missed out on due to the messes I was busy cleaning instead of creating. I totally hear you and feel you, and I really appreciate you sharing this difficult slice of your story with us, and kind of coming forward on it. I think it's really awesome, because I'm sure there are going to be other people out there who've experienced similar things. And all I can say is that when your inner child has spent so very long conforming to a very rigid structure, and one in which creativity is not welcomed, and one in which freedom is not really an option, you need to start small, and it's those small consistent steps in the right direction that really make a meal of it. So you are not going to be able, you're not going to be emotionally and mentally able to, you know, clear your floor and get out your paper and your pens and your paints and everything and just go ham and make a real mess of it. You're not going to be able to do that, you know, because it's inside your psyche and inside your unconscious, there is a little girl that is trying to keep everything ticking over, that is almost being the mast in the midst of a stormy sea. You are playing a role, and you're still playing this role which is no longer useful and which is really just hampering your progress, but you're playing that role because it's safe and it's familiar and it's what your inner child is convinced is necessary. So you're not going to be able to pull out the big guns straight away and go for gold and fucking, you know, create a mad, messy masterpiece. You're not going to be able to do it. You need to sit your inner child down and explain to your inner child that it is okay, that there is no risk, there is no threat, it's safe. And your inner child is just not going to believe that at first, okay? Your inner child is going to keep trying to go with the program, read the script. And so it's important for you to give your inner child a gentle introduction to a more creative way of being. And that might start by introducing more creative inspiration into your life. So listening to what your inner child thinks is inspiring. What does your inner child think is beautiful to look at? What excites your inner child about art and music and, you know, all these different kinds of modes of expression that human beings have created throughout time? What does your inner child want to expose themselves to in terms of inspiration? That's where to begin. And then when you start going to do something creative, it's little and often. You do not want to freak your inner child out. You want to give your inner child a tiny taste of something creative and exciting, and then go from there. There's no point trying to dive into the deep end, because your inner child is not going to be able to deal with that. It's going to create overwhelm. What you really want to do is guide your inner child exactly the way you would guide a child through playing on like a jungle gym, like a climbing frame or something like that. You know, trying to help a child ride a bike. You just go gently, go slowly. If you're trying to teach a child how to tie their shoelaces, or, you know, expose them to a new mode of creative expression, then it's all about following the child's lead, seeing what the child wants to do, and not overwhelming the child straight away with like expecting them to do something that they've never really done before or been allowed to do before. You've got to start slow, start as you mean to go on, and keep reiterating to your inner child that your inner child is safe. Put your arms around that little part of your psyche and create sacred space for that little part of you in the psyche that is fearful of making a mess, and just keep saying, no, it's okay. You go ahead, honey. You make that mess. You know, you've got to keep telling your inner child that it's all right and reassuring your inner child that it is okay. I'm going to leave it here for today. I still have a few more Q&As left to film because I've really allowed myself to run with the questions and try and give in-depth answers where possible. So I'm taking my time with these questions, and that's really what I intended. I'm going to come back and make the rest of the Q&A videos at some other point, but I hope that you have enjoyed these for now, and thank you so much for your questions. They've been really interesting for me to answer. I've had so much fun, and much love. Until next time, blessed be.